the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
Making funeral arrangements when a loved one has died is difficult while one is in the midst of grief. Our clergy, parish staff members, and local funeral directors are committed to providing caring and compassionate service that offers the consolation and support of the Christian community in carrying out the corporal work of mercy of burying the dead in a dignified and graceful manner.
The Drew Mariani Show on Relevant Radio.
Yeah, that was the voice of His Excellency Bishop Thomas Paprocki. He's going to be joining me today to discuss new funeral policies that he's implementing in his diocese. And I want to talk about this. This is, I think it's such an important topic, and I'm curious as to what motivated this change on his behalf. But he's not alone. There's a number of other bishops that joined him in this. And before we get to it, let me just ask, have you ever attended a Catholic funeral? Maybe recently, and you've noticed they're kind of different from the many memorial services that you might have gone to before. I mean, in our culture right now, funerals have become more of a celebration of a person's life, like a tribute, a farewell. These long, their slideshows are shown, right? And their favorite songs are played, and long eulogies are now the centerpiece of this whole thing. And then I see people taking ashes, right, to keep them on the mantle. They say, hey, I'm going to take so-and-so and sprinkle them, over Lambeau Field because he was a big Packer fan or whatever. I mean, you get stuff like that, right? Sometimes they're divided amongst family members. The ashes are divided up, or they're turned into jewelry. We've talked about a company that's actually monetizing that now. You can have them turned into a diamond. All sorts of weird stuff, right? But I know it all comes from a good place. I'm not trying to be in any way disrespectful. You want to honor the person you loved, and you want to keep them close. Believe me, I get it. I do. But here's the question that I want you to consider. What is a Catholic funeral really for, right? And that's exactly why several American bishops, like Bishop Thomas Paprocki from the Diocese of Springfield, Illinois, and there's the bishop from the Diocese of Youngstown, Ohio, and Worcester, Massachusetts, and North Carolina, his fellow brother bishops, they've issued updated funeral policies to address what Bishop Paprocki called irregular practices, or I love this term too, liturgical anomalies. So the bishops aren't trying to make funerals less personal, and I have to commend them on it. They're trying to make them more Christian. That's what they're doing. I will go through some of this with His Excellency. I mean, it's some of the biggest concerns are these eulogies that are given, right? As well as, being buried in hallowed ground and a whole litany of other things. But let me welcome to the conversation right now His Excellency Bishop Thomas Paprocki. And as I said, he hails from the Diocese of Springfield, Illinois, and a straight arrow. He's known as the Holy Goalie. He's been a friend of the show for years, and I'm always honored to have him here to guide us through these sensitive issues. Your Excellency, welcome. It's great to have you back. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Drew. Good afternoon. It's great to be with you again, and you and your listeners.
Thank you for what you're doing here, too. I think it's timely, and boy, do I think it's needed. I attended a funeral, actually, for a cousin of mine, and I was absolutely shocked because the mother was my aunt, right? Is my mother's sister. And she was a Catholic, but she kind of fell away from the faith a little bit and did not have a Catholic funeral. There was these long eulogies, and there was a party afterwards. There was, as I said, the slides beforehand, and it was really about talking about her life. And I was so disappointed in my cousins. I shouldn't be saying this on national radio, but because they're doing their mother a disservice. They really are doing their mother a disservice. Why would you not have a Catholic Mass? And they said to me that, my mother didn't want it. Let's talk about that, if you could. Let's talk about what we're seeing. How far do you go? Do you honor somebody's wish not to have a Catholic Mass? Do you do it out of love because their soul needs it and purgatory is a real place? What prompted this on your behalf? And then we can talk about some of the challenges that we're now seeing.
Yeah, so what prompted it was seeing these, what I described as liturgical anomalies, irregularities that are kind of creeping in as people kind of redesigning the funerals. And I think there's a variety of reasons for that. I think that one of them is just our own culture's discomfort with death. And when someone dies, it's not wanting to focus on the reality of death
and instead using euphemisms or changing the focus. So instead of talking about the death, even the terminology, people don't want to refer to a funeral. They talk about a celebration of life. Right. Cemeteries are now memorial gardens, and then even the ritual itself. I remember when I was a little boy, my uncle died, my mother's older brother. We had a 3-day wake. And as a little boy going to wake every day, it just seemed like that would be forever. And then 3 days went to 2 days to 1 day, and then now it's like 1 hour, if that, sometimes before a funeral mass. And I think COVID also played a role in that, because a lot of this I've seen just in the last few years. I think part of that is with COVID, we had shutdowns of churches, and then people were kind of innovating, priests hearing confessions in the parking lot because you were supposed to keep your social distance and things like that. And so I think people felt, well, we can kind of redesign things. And so they're redesigning the funerals. And so it reached a point like, well, all right, you can do a funeral any way you want, but then is it still a Catholic funeral? Mm-hmm. I actually had somebody write to me recently, and he said that, who are you to tell me how to do my funeral? And I wrote back, I said, well, I'm the bishop, and I think it's my role. It's actually my responsibility to make sure that we follow the liturgical books. That's even in canon law, that we're not supposed to add anything or subtract anything from the liturgy. So like at a Mass, you can't say, well, we're going to skip the liturgy of the Word and go right to Holy Communion. Well, then it's not a Mass. It's just a communion service. And similarly with a funeral, people saying, well, we want to skip this or we want to skip that. And, so the kind of situations where you're describing as somebody really doesn't want a Catholic funeral, well, that's their option. I'd say, if you still have family members that are practicing the faith, you could still have a memorial mass offered for them. Yeah. But what I've seen is also, I think, even a more sad situation is where you have the person who dies is a regular churchgoer, maybe even a daily communicant.
Yeah, right.
And then the adult children don't go to church, and then we don't want any of this church stuff. We'll just have a simple service or eulogies or things like that. And I think that's really a disservice to the memory of the person that died.
Yeah, I mean, that's so sad because of the power and the efficacy of the Mass for the soul, and it's actually quite tragic. Let's take a few calls for you, too. If you want to join us, I'm speaking with Bishop Thomas Paprocki. We're taking a look at some of the changes, and we'll go through some more of these with him, and just trying to give you proper perspective on what funerals are really all about. It's not about the eulogy. It's about really so much more than that. Rudy is in Texas. Amy is in Texas. Amy, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. As I listened, you were saying what's the reason for the change, and I don't think that there's ever been a change, and I just needed clarification that it's the fact that people are becoming more lax, not that the church has changed. Is that correct?
Okay, Your Excellency?
Yes, and in fact, I would say that I'm not introducing anything new. In fact, I think what I'm trying to do is to say this is the way the church does Catholic funerals. And so there's three parts to it. Typically, there's the vigil, there's the Mass of Christian burial, or in some cases you could have a non-Eucharistic liturgy of burial, and then the committal at the cemetery. And all three of those parts should be done. I ask people sometimes, did you ever wonder at a funeral Mass in church, you don't start the Mass with the sign of the cross like we normally do, and at the end there's no final blessing. Right. Why is that? Well, because the sign of the cross, the ceremony actually began the night before at the vigil. And then the final blessing takes place at the cemetery in the committal. It's a 3-part service. And so all I'm saying is let's do those 3 parts instead of people saying, well, we don't want to do that vigil, or instead of a vigil, we'll have a visitation an hour before the Mass. Well, a vigil by definition is the night before. It's praying for the deceased and offering that opportunity for people to come and share their condolences, and for those who have lost their loved one to receive the support from their family and friends during a time of grief.
Amen to that. Amy, thank you very much for your call. Appreciate it. Thank you. Rudy's in Buena Park, California. Rudy, you're on with His Excellency Bishop Thomas Paprocki. Good afternoon.
Hello. Well, I used to work at Disney, and this is how disgraceful they are.
Wow.
We actually would get, the code was a HEPA cleanup on the radio, so we knew about it. So we would actually have to either scoop them up or vacuum, because a lot of them would do it in the Haunted Mansion,
Wow.
and then throw them away in the packer.
Rudy, you're talking about ashes, right? You're saying people would take the ashes of their loved ones to Disney because they loved it, and they'd sprinkle them in the haunted house?
Yeah, haunted house and the flower beds. And I had an issue with this, so I talked to my manager, and she said, fine, if that happens, get someone else to do it. I go, yeah, because it's the dignity of the person. And, that's a routine. HEPA cleanup at so-and-so location.
Wow.
And that's what Disney does.
Rudy, thanks for calling. That's fascinating. I'm glad you dialed in to share that. That's unbelievable. And he's not alone. I'm sure, Your Excellency, it's Disney. I heard about somebody doing it at Lambeau. You hear it, of course, your favorite lake or hiking trail or whatever. Speak to that if you could. This idea of ashes and cremation. In fact, let's do this. Let me take a quick break. When we come back, let's talk about that. Because, cremation for a long time was not the practice of the church. Things have changed. Want to get your take on where we are right now. Are we going back? Would the church prefer us perhaps to not be cremated? Cost is a big thing for a lot of people. That's why they go that route. But we can talk about this on the other side. I take a short pause. When we return, our conversation will continue with His Excellency. We're taking a look right now at Christian burial, Catholic funerals in particular, and looking at why Catholic bishops across the country are reinforcing funeral practices that have been part of the church's tradition for centuries. So are these simply new rules, or are they helping you to rediscover really what a Catholic funeral is meant to be? Stay with me. That conversation continues right after this.
That was the Best of the Week on Relevant Radio. The best way to listen to the Best of the Week is on the Relevant Radio app. Free and always free. Download and share the #1 free Catholic app today in the App Store.